Speaker, and I rise to speak primarily about the new Clause 1 and we'll touch upon the other amendments. The reality of this bill is that it's delivering on the promise of Brexit, but also the practicalities of what that means for this country. The truth is, when people went and voted for Brexit across this country in a large majority, especially at the last election, what we found was that people wanted to use, as the phrase has been referenced a lot today, about taking back control. Well, there's no greater taking back control than being able to have politicians and MPs in this place and the government that they've elected to be able to decide on the laws and make sure that they are being implemented. Now, we've talked a lot today about the idea that this is somehow a burden or a bonfire of rights. Actually, what we see through the government, and I saw it myself last year, was an absolute passion by this government and this Conservative Party to make sure that workers' rights are at the heart of what we do. In the past year, just in my own work as a backbench MP, I brought in a private member's bill for tips to make sure that workers can keep their tips, that the member for Ernest Mourne is bringing through to the next stage to improve workers' rights. We've improved backed bills, private members' bills, around extending maternity rights, extending carers' leave. There's lots of ways that we're doing that, and that's not because we're being forced to, not because the EU has told us to, but because we believe that is the right thing to do, and I fully back that. Now, the truth of this bill is that it's about making sure that in this place, when voters vote for us, we have the ability to make changes that they can choose at the next election to keep us or get rid of us. But by kicking it down the road, which is what effectively the amendments I've seen today have been about, will mean that actually that will never happen. We have to have a deadline, but also one that is purposeful but delivers on what people actually voted for at the last election. We need to make sure that we're delivering in a timely fashion. And the idea that somehow we're putting too much work onto civil servants, it's going to be too hard, it's too much effort. Well, actually, we're here to be voted in to deliver. And if we're not going to make sure that our civil servants are delivering on that, and the civil servants do an amazing job, I have to say, my experience with them has been fantastic, is making sure that we're delivering on those promises that we made to the British public. Now, there's lots of ways that I've heard the misinformation and some, in cases, sadly, I think, in the media and in emails, disinformation about what this bill will do. It's not about reducing rights. It's not about reducing environmental measures. It's actually about making sure that we're looking at what laws are in place in this country that are being delivered by this country for the British people. And the idea that... I'll give way to the Honourable Lady.
The honourable member, he and I have worked collaboratively on a number of different things, including the online safety bill. I think what is concerning is that given the vast swathe of legislation that is still yet to be determined, that there is difficulties around trust. So these particularly the rights that have been built up over a number of years of workers, but already also environmental standards, even in terms of online safety, because that is also one of, well, several aspects of that are included within this swathe of thing. That if they could be brought back to the House so we could see them, if there was a significant change in the existing provision, then that would restore confidence. So, thank you.
I thank the Honourable Lady for her comments, and I've enjoyed working with her as well on the online safety bill, and as we heard yesterday, that's made huge progression yesterday going through now to the Lords. I think the key point here is that there are many, many laws, and there's many pieces of what I would consider to be red tape that are within the statute books at the moment, some of which even those who wanted us to stay in the EU don't even know exist. And so what we need to do is make sure we go through a process to identify those. And as it says very clearly, this is about amending, repealing or replacing that legislation. Now, one of the areas for that is making sure that the case law that currently in some instances refers to EU pieces of case law and others are referring to UK pieces. There's legislation that will become very rapidly out of date because of the fact that it refers to old EU legislation and priorities and policies. That can't be right. We need to make sure that our legislation is fit for purpose and up to date. Yes, I'll gladly take it.
Just on a small point which has just been raised, may I just mention the fact that the Online Safety Bill is not actually EU-retained law.
Yes,
it is, they have a law in the European Union, but with our bill here is not.
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely agree with my right honourable friend on that point. I'm conscious of time, Mr Deputy Speaker. I think the bit that I really wanted to just touch upon here was about the role of this with regard to growth and within small businesses. What we need to make sure is that within this country, our small businesses, and small businesses are, I believe, something like 99% of all of our businesses, it's absolutely essential that they can be nimble in a different world that we live in nowadays. We used to talk about the fact that we had a shop on every corner of the high street. We now have businesses that can be in every corner of the world, and actually that means that we need to be nimble. We need to make sure that they can grow. We need to make sure that they aren't being burdened with spending most of their time doing admin and back office stuff to fulfil legislation that is out of date and unnecessary. We need to make sure we know what that is. And when it comes to, I'll take a.
That was done for giving way, and while we're looking at the revocation and reform bill as we have before us tonight, and most of the United Kingdom will benefit from that, and we as a party will be supporting government tonight when it comes to the votes. Northern Ireland is left behind due to the protocol bill that the Honourable Gentleman referred to. Does the Honourable Gentleman agree, while we do these things tonight, we must ensure that the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill goes through and the people of Northern Ireland have the very same rights as the rest of us here have in the United Kingdom?
My honourable member but honourable friend for his comments, and absolutely we need to get that sorted because it's absolutely essential we move forward in the right way. But my point on small businesses is that small businesses at the moment have to have staff to do extra things to deal with government, whether it be to do with admin, processes, all of these different things. Actually, if we can relieve that stress from them, if we can make it so they can be more nimble, if they can spend more of their time selling and doing rather than having to fill out paperwork, that's got to be a good thing. And when we look at this legislation, we've got to make sure that everything that's there is fit for purpose, that there is a purpose to it, and that we're being purposeful in making sure it's being implemented. And the idea that we've got thousands of laws that are part of the statute book that actually aren't essential, that aren't necessarily needed, and actually are just there when many members probably don't even realise that they exist, cannot be good for this country. It cannot be good for growth, and it cannot be good especially for small businesses and those who run those small businesses. So I will finish there. There's lots more I'd like to talk about, but I would just like to say I absolutely support this bill. I look forward to seeing it going through to the Lords, and I hope members on the opposite benches will see the benefits that this will bring to this country. And when they talk about taking back control, they realise this is at the heart of that. Thank you.